19th to order, please, with the roll call, please.
Mr. Featherling?
Here.
Mr. Miller?
Here.
Mr. Washington?
Present.
Mr. Tholen? Ms. Polk? Mr. Payton? Ms. Peters? Ms. Dunbar? Mr. Kinzinger?
Present.
Mr. Fairfield?
Present.
Mr. Smith?
Present.
Mr. Swanson?
Present.
Mr. Dennell? Mr. Long?
Present.
Mr. Wheeler? Mr. Seroy?
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. There is no public comment that I'm aware of. Everyone back there is with the meeting here today. So we'll have approval of the minutes from January 22nd. I'm sure everyone got a copy by email or by paper.
Question, sir.
Yes, sir.
I did not get a chance to review them online. I'm assuming they're there.
Oh, sorry.
I said I did not get a chance to review them online. I'm assuming that they're there. But I don't see my request for the entry on here reference the township road commissioner's issue.
Yes, well, that's under automation and permit registration processes.
Okay,
Okay?
I'll accept that, but I was
Okay.
going to ask first.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions? Just a motion. Mr. Washington, Mr. Fairfield, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay. Okay, first up today is going to be Delbert with the building report. Can I get a motion to approve it? Okay, Mr. Long, second by Mr. Kinzinger. All in favor say aye. Aye. Okay. Accepted. Ready to go, Dell.
In your packet is the monthly building report for January 2020. During the month of January, we had one new home, issued 28 permits with a valuation of $1.1 million, and brought in $10,736 in revenue. This is a little down from 2019. For the same month of January, we had brought in $13,000 last year.
Okay, anyone have any questions? Barring none, we get a roll call vote, or voice vote, please. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion. All against say aye. Same sign. None. Motion carries. Stormwater MS4 program discussion. Delbert?
Just like every month, I'm required to ask if anyone on the board has any issues, stormwater related issues that they'd like to bring to our attention.
Does anyone have any? No? Okay. Next up, automation of permit and registration process.
Okay.
Mr. Skimmerhorn's got a presentation for us on that.
Kelly, could you switch over there? For about the last year and a half, maybe 2 years, that my staff and I have been looking at various ways that we could improve our process and serve our customers better. And one of them that we've been looking very strongly at is automating the permit process. If you remember last month, I brought in this huge poster that shows the permitting process, and I think that is very indicative of just how complicated that process can be. And every day, every inspector, when they're reviewing and issuing permits, has to follow that entire process. Some of it gets eliminated very quickly depending on the type of project, but those questions still have to be asked for every project. So currently, we are very old school in the office. We use spreadsheets, word tables, and about 50 plus or minus filing cabinets for our storage to do our daily business. It is not an efficient process, and but it's the best one that we have currently. So why would we need this? Well, yearly we average about 700 to 800 permits a year for building permits. On top of that, around 60 or so floodplain permits, 20 erosion control permits, and all of that equates to about 1,100 inspections a year. And you can see the numbers on the board there of all the other permits and referrals that we do. And all of that is done with 3 full-time inspectors and 2 part-time clerical people. So they are very busy people most months. Apparently January we were not. Some of the benefits of automating the system, improved customer service. We would be able to deliver permits to our customers in a much more faster and efficient manner through the use of a computer. Actually, at full rollout, a customer could actually go through the entire process of applying for the permit, paying for the permit, scheduling their inspections, and getting all of their necessary paperwork and never step foot in our office, if they so chose to. Record keeping, those 50 filing cabinets could go away, and we certainly would not be adding to them because everything would be stored in the cloud on a hard drive. Currently, we have, besides the 50 filing cabinets, that just handles the 8.5 by 11 paperwork. We have a storage bin down in the building next door, the cage over there that we keep actual building plans in, and we have a couple of different building plans for the more current stuff that is actually in our office. And these things have to be stored and they have to be retrieved often on a daily basis. One of the items up there is, before you issue a permit, see if there's any violations on the property, see what's happened on the property before to make sure we're not making a mistake in issuing a permit. So that has to be checked, and that's one of the boxes that are in that process up there. Document management, record keeping, and reporting. The system eases that entire process. It actually can kick out monthly reports like the building report you've seen in a lot more detail with charts and graphs and things like that. So there's a dashboard to it. So on any given day, on a daily basis, myself and any county board member or that we have that has password access to it could see where we're at any time. How much money we brought in, how many permits we've issued. Efficiency and speed, fast track permitting. One of the big things, especially for commercial these days, is they don't like to be held up with the red tape and the paperwork. The faster you can get them a permit, the faster they can get their project done, and that is a big thing, especially in the commercial side of things. This would help us achieve faster permitting and get closer to having a fast-track permitting process. It would help with accuracy. The computer itself would calculate the fees once the fee tables are all put in, so human error, and that would be lessened if not eliminated. And it would also help with our scheduling. Currently, our scheduling is done manually based on the request for inspections. Then we determine who's available and where they're going, and we do try to make that efficient so that we're not sending somebody to Grant Park and then all the way to the Reddick area on the same trip. But this would help streamline our scheduling process and ensure that that type of stuff doesn't happen. Convenience for customers, as I said before, they don't have to come into the office to participate in the process, and it would be available 24/7. They could be sitting at their home applying for their permit on a Saturday. We would receive the paperwork on Monday when we walked in and act accordingly. For contractors, they'd be able to manage multiple permits and registrations from a single interface. If they've got 10 permits out and wondering where they should send their crew that day because of inspection schedules or things like that, they would be able to pull up their part of the interface and be able to determine the best way to manage their people and their projects. They would also have notifications. That is something, communications is the next one. The process or the software allows you to notify anybody you would like to notify, which actually goes to Mr. Smith's question from last month, that you could actually, you could put in the email addresses of all of the township road commissioners, and every time we issue a permit, they'd automatically get a copy of it sent to their emails, providing they keep their emails up to date with us in our system, which is, I did check on that, and half of them that we have are not current. So if they don't tell us, how do we know?
I suggest you go down and see Dan Hendrickson's office, because I've contacted.
Microphone, please.
When it gets turned on, I'll be using it. I suggest you go to Dan's office and ask him for them, because the ones he gave me last month seem to all be current since I've heard from most of them.
It's another step in the process to do that. We have to retrieve them, we have to put them in. We don't have the software either yet, so. But that is something we would have to do. But it does allow you to do that with the inspections. As soon as the inspection is performed and the inspector hits the OK button on it, it'll send out emails to that homeowner or property owner, the contractor, back to our office, so everyone knows whether it passed or not, and if it didn't pass, what needs to be done to correct the issues. And of course, project management. Some of the drawbacks, obviously, the staff would need to be trained. There's a learning curve to it. So there would be a period of time. In fact, I envision it's possible that we would for some period of time, we would do everything twice, the old system and the new system, for at least a month or two, just to make sure we don't lose information and things are properly moving along. And of course, the cost. There is a cost involved with this. Now there's the full rollout that allows the use of tablets in the field for inspections and stuff like that. And there's the ability for the end customer to actually log into the system from anywhere. But we can roll this out in various parts. And I think the most beneficial to us would be to use it in-house first for a little while, make sure all the bugs are worked out of it and everything works right. This is designed, custom designed to it will mirror our process, so we don't really have to change any of our processes to use it, although I'm quite sure that there will be a few tweaks that we'll have to do to our processes, but the core processes would stay the same. So I do have a video demonstration that a vendor sent me. I'd like to play for you, give you an idea of what we're looking at and what the software is capable of. It's, I think, 8 minutes or so, if that's all right. Is that all right, Mr.
Sure.
Chairman? Okay.
Let's go.
So we'll go ahead and play that.
Good afternoon. We're going to do a overview of SmartGov this afternoon. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen out with you guys. And we're going to start more high level. Last time when we had the team on the call, we had talked about creating more efficiencies. We also talked about moving into a more digital, more technology, and engaging customers online for the future. So we're going to touch on all those areas today. I shared a map out with you guys. So you should see a bunch of different colored pens up there. And what this does is it basically gives you guys an idea of what types of projects are going on around the county. It helps the team prioritize projects. So you can see the status of projects. You can drill down into this data a bit further. If you want to plug in some date ranges, if you want to plug in certain permit types, right? Those are all things that you can do from here. One of the other things that we're going to be building out when we put records in the system, like permit applications, planning and zoning applications, right, is a history for your properties there in the county. So if I have someone calling in asking questions about a particular property, maybe they want the past 5 years of permit history, information like that, right? I can go in, I can easily plug in an address or a parcel, and it'll find that for me. So it filters everything else out, and I can quickly go to that property if I want to see where it's located on the map. Click on the pin that you see there. I can see there's 67 records on that property. And this is just kind of a quick snapshot of one of the records on that property. I can go right to the parcel itself, though, if I want to see kind of across the board all the things that are tied to it. And you'll see here I've got a list of everything that's happened on that property since, I think, 2010. Now, this is one of our existing clients' database that you guys are looking at here on the screen. So some of their permit types and different projects may be a bit different than what you guys are experiencing there in your county. So those are all things that'll be customized, configured to meet your needs, right? So in addition to having access to the property data, right, it's also providing a way for you guys to communicate across departments. So a lot of times when we work with counties, sometimes there's somebody different that goes out and does code enforcement versus folks who are doing permitting. Not always, but sometimes. But what this does is it brings together all that information, and we're also able to see all the code enforcement violations that may be tied to that particular property, plus any licenses that may be issued for that property as well. So it's combining all those different areas into one place for the team to manage. So I'm going to hop over real quick to a permit that I was working on earlier. And when I go over to the permit, this is for a building permit. Again, this is for that client I was telling you guys about a second ago. they have a couple different things that they look for. And again, this is where we're going to pull together all the things that you guys do when you process a permit, everything from fees that you collect to potentially folks who have to review it in order to approve it. So in this case, you'll see under workflow, right, I've got the planning and the health department that have to review this in order for it to move forward, right? And this is exactly where we would go in and we would approve it, right? It creates some accountability around that. I can see that Sam Chapin approved that today on February 10th. The other areas that we're going to talk through just briefly today, any submittals that are required if you guys want to take in site plans, electrical drawings, things like that that are going to be important part of that review process. We briefly touched on fees, validating contractor licenses through this process, as well as inspections that are required for each of your permits and application types. So one of the things that stands out here, and I'm just going to pop over to inspections really quick, you can see that we're setting the tone here for what's going to have to happen once we issue the permit. So once we've gone through all those checklist items of things that we need and check-offs and approvals we get from other people or our department, inspections can be scheduled directly through the system. Typically, an inspector would have like a tablet or smartphone in the field with them. So whenever these get scheduled, right, it sends them an alert saying, hey, you've got something new in your work list. And then they can easily pull that up out in the field. So when they go to their SmartGov app in the morning, right, and I was working on an inspection earlier here, let me go back to my home page. I've got a list of everything that I need to do that day. Right, I can scroll through that list. I can see I need to go to a footing trench rebar, right? I click into it and this is where I can collect results. So there's a section down here at the bottom that I can go in and record corrections that have to happen, or I could even document a code reference if I wanted to make that when I was out in the field. Once I final this, right, it can go right back to the contractor or the builder, the customer, right? They can email that directly to them, or you can see there's an option to publish online. And that's what we're working towards, is to get something available online. So when contractors want to check their status, they can do that directly through a citizen portal. Or in the future, if you guys want them to be able to apply online and take some of the work off the staff of putting applications in, and also creating that 24/7 self-service option, that's going to be available to you guys as well. So just to give you a quick view of that, I'm going to pop over here to the public portal. You'll see I've branded it for the county, got the county logo there in the top left. Underneath there, you'll see 4 boxes. Depending on how we want to roll out the portal, right? We've got the online applications, everything that starts there, right? Put the application in, it goes to our staff, it goes to the appropriate workflows, work channels, gets approved, right? Inspections happen, that's what we've talked about so far, all the way to tracking the status of my application. So if I want to go see if my permit's been approved, or if I want to look up my inspection history, or maybe I'm a contractor and I want to get my registration set up here, or I want to go online and renew, I can do that all for one spot. Here at the top, you'll see I've got a list of all my active permits, so I can see exactly what status they're all in. And I'm kind of wearing the hat here of one of your contractors, one of your builders. Got a lot of new buildings coming in. You can see the status of each of those projects. And if I want to drill down further, I can click into them. So if I want to look up inspection history, right, I can go right to the permit, I can pull that up, and I can see any results that were collected by the inspector, and all that's relayed back to me in real time. Right, so this format you see here, this is just a template that comes out of our demonstration account. These are all things that we're going to configure with you guys to make sure that it meets your needs and it communicates the information that you need your customer to see. Right, so real quick, I'm just going to pop back to the main screen that we looked at initially with those 4 boxes. This is where we want to take things. We want to go online at some point, and we can definitely help, create some efficiencies, at least from putting applications in, for allowing our staff to do that, or if we're allowing our applicants to do that, right? We can make it really simple for them online. It's also opening up the doors 24/7 for them to be able to submit applications. So if you work with folks out of state, or folks that have, this is maybe a side job that they do, or a homeowner who works full-time, they can go to your website and they can go ahead in and they can apply for an application. Now you'll see here I skipped through kind of quick. Different applications can be applied for online. Those are all things that we customize. We can configure directly for the jurisdiction that we're working with. And of course, based on what the applicant selects, it's going to walk them through step by step what they need to enter in order for them to submit their application. So I go too much detail there. Wanted to give you guys just kind of a high level today. If there are additional questions, feel free to reach out. Be happy to answer those for you. Thanks so much for your time today.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Skimmerhorn.
That was a very quick, short overview of the program itself. Will County actually uses this same software, and we went up there and spent a whole day with their planning director who walked us through the entire thing, and it was pretty amazing how they actually use it and how much it helps them. Slideshow from current slide. So you're probably wondering, what does this cost? Initial cost is $42,000 to set everything up and to make it work. That actually breaks down to, I think it's $33,000 for the setup, and the remainder of that $42,000 is the remainder of the 2020 if we were to purchase this today for the annual subscription fee. Then after that, it is a annual subscription fee of about $21,000 a year. I am sure over time that does go up 5% a year or so like that, but it's going to be around that range. So that's the type of money we are looking at to initiate this system. How would we pay for it? There's a few ways. One, we could raise building permit fees. Two, we could pay for it out of the money we currently already collect. Or three, we could probably raise contractor registration fees, as they will see a pretty substantial benefit from the use of this software. Would leave that up to the committee and the board to decide on that. I can tell you when it comes to registration fees that ours are currently $100 a year, which is the lowest around. Most agencies are charging $150 minimum for a year for registration fees for contractors. And that extra $50 would bring in about $35,000, $40,000 a year if we were to raise it to that level.
Okay, Mr. Wheeler.
Thank you. I've got a few, Del.
Sure.
Did they provide you an ROI number on employee costs, the payback, like it takes 2 years on employee time to pay for this system?
No, I did not ask for that, so I never received any of that.
Okay.
I can.
Yeah, maybe we'll get together a list of stuff that we want to get answers for. Because
yeah, I'm not looking for a decision today.
We would send it to finance at some point, and we should have those answers. Finance would ask that. Did they have any, does the however much it is a year, does that cover any updates? Let's just say we come out with a new ordinance that needs to be put into the system or some new regulation. Is that covered is that considered an annual maintenance fee as well?
Yes, there's a certain number of hours for changes and updates. The software updates are included in that. If they change the software itself,
right,
we get the software updates.
And how many hours is it, do you know?
Offhand, no, I don't have the
we'll
proposal in front of me, but I can certainly get that for you. And a lot of those changes, as the guy in Will County demonstrated, staff can do it on the fly pretty quickly themselves.
Good.
Unless they're extensive changes. So.
What about GIS integration?
Well, you've seen the map up there that was integrated with that GIS, and it could integrate with ours.
So you can throw floodplain on it and anything else when you're looking at
right, and those dots, I mean, you can see where all of your permits are that are open. You can have them categorized by type of permit. So that part of the dashboard would be available too.
Okay, and what about old records into the system? It seems like...
Well, none of this cost is putting any of our old records in. This would be drawing a line in the sand, and everything from this point forward would go in. Maybe over time, as we could get funds, we could start scanning in the old records. But as time goes on, those records are less and less important.
So you will still have a manual process for the foreseeable future until you get
for at least a while.
Much like the recorder's doing with her records, getting those put into the system.
Very similar.
You just have to start going backwards.
Over time, we could start putting those in.
What is this, cloud-based or is this server-based?
Cloud-based.
Okay. The security on that, I'm sure that they have the full documentation. We'd have to go through Kevin
On the
when that
security,
happens.
and before we implemented anything, I would like, you know, Kevin at IT to certainly sit in on all of that, so.
So is there a local backup, or is it, where's the backups housed for the data?
We can back it up locally.
What about data ownership? Did they say, because we own the data? and that's
According to the
something-
documents I seen, it was our data. We own it. Again, I would have the state's attorney look at that contract.
I just have two
first.
more.
Okay.
The logo on there was their logo. I would prefer our logo on there. I
Well,
don't
if you've
wanna-
seen on the,
was in the
they
corner.
did put our logo up in the corner.
Well, it still said Dude something in the corner of that
It's
screen.
Dude Software is the company's
I
name.
don't think that's, I want to advertise for that company, so I think that I would insist that only it's branded to us because we're paying for it.
Right.
It's the show bus thing all over again.
Sure. It's something we can talk to them about.
And then, when were the fees last raised? That was my last question. When was the
Our
last time we raised
fees
it?
were last raised, I believe, about 2000. Which fee, you're talking about the building permit fees?
Yeah, it's at 100. Where was it at?
Oh, you're talking
before?
about the contractor registration.
Yeah, just to pay
Contractor
for-
registration is $100. That has not been raised since it was put into place in 2003. Was it 2003? 2000. So we have never had an increase in that since the program started.
I would just say I think we found a way to pay for it.
It seems like it seems like the way to do it. I mean, it
Sorry, Mr.
does put
Kinzinger.
it puts the cost on the backs of the contractors, but also, you know, the homeowner who's applying for a permit probably does that once or twice in their lifetime, whereas the contractors are using it monthly, daily, weekly, and they do get a benefit because they could manage their projects through the portal.
Thank you. That's all I have for now.
Okay, anyone else? Ms. Peters, you look like you're Mr. Kingsinger.
I have a few questions myself. The Dude software, is that the same software maintenance is using? And do they integrate in any fashion?
I have no idea.
Facilities Dude is the same thing.
Facilities
company.
Dude, I don't think it's the same software company,
Eh,
but it could be.
You would think it would be Patton.
This company does write
Copyrighted.
management software for more than just building permits.
Have you checked to see if there are other software programs available that do the same type of thing?
Yes, we've actually evaluated about 8 of them.
And this is your
And this
best
was the
one?
best one.
And from your standpoint, are you recommending this, and if so, why?
I'm recommending it, yes.
For what purpose? How do you see it helping?
I think it'll make us far more efficient. It will improve our communications. I gave a list of what I felt the benefits are. It'll reduce storage. While I don't believe it would save us any current employees, it could keep us from having to hire more in the future. It could cut down on our other costs for travel if we can more efficiently schedule our inspections.
And then one more comment, and this is general, but we talk about contractor fees. It would be one thing if there was one fee, but every contractor has Bourbonnais fees, Kankakee fees, Mantino fees, and every other community's fees on top of these fees.
I don't think.
Just as a matter of
no,
record.
I believe Bourbonnais uses our system. They pay the
Well,
fee
we're
to
paying
us.
something there.
City of Kankakee used to use our system and decided to use their own, and they charge $150 a year themselves.
Okay, anyone else have any questions? No? Mr. Smith?
Just more comment, Dell, and I do appreciate you going out and doing the work. I'm still a bit fuzzy, and I'm sure you're gonna work it in here somewhere where these road commissioners get the notifications for projects that you don't necessarily think they want to be made aware of. Specifically the wind tower you and I have talked about. I talked to a couple of them. How do the pipeline or the utilities access come in and crossing township roads? Do you get involved in that at all?
Unless there's an electrical connection for a pump, usually not.
Okay, I can't see where that would be, but
Most
I know.
utilities and pipelines are exempt from.
that was a common
by
thing
state
that
law.
I got back from the majority of the road commissioners they were concerned about.
they're either exempt from permits or they're permitted by the state, so we're not involved with that. If, like I said, if there's, we do get involved occasionally if there's an electrical connection for a building or a pump or something like that, then we're only inspecting and permitting the electrical
But
connection.
not the access
Not
to
the
the roads.
access or any of that, no. So,
Okay.
It's a,
typically, we
There's an
only,
easement.
well, we
I understand the
actually,
easement side, but the easement doesn't include their destruction of the roads. And that's where the road commissioners, at least 6 of them that I talked to out of the 11, you know, they all brought this up. They wanted to have some notification that things were happening until they found the middle of, you know, a pipeline, X, Y, or Z, you know, had destroyed their roads hauling pipe in and everything else. So, but that's why I was asking if it actually goes through our office or not.
no, we usually get notified and know something's going on, but not always, not always. And that's a courtesy if they do.
And I would just ask that you extend that courtesy out to the road commissioners once you get this system up and running.
That would be very simple to do. Like I said, the only challenge there is making sure that their email addresses are up to date.
Yeah.
Otherwise, when you hit send, it can send it to anybody on that list.
Yeah.
So,
All I can tell you is I got responses back from what was sent out.
okay.
So,
Okay, Mr. Wheeler, one more?
Thank you. Just my personal suggestion is this has to be an opt-in system instead of us determining arbitrarily who should be notified and who should not be notified. I think it's a lot to put on your office, and I think there are legal things that start to enter into it when somebody's not notified and they think they should be.
I
It
think
should be on them to tell us they want this information.
I believe so too. I mean, we notify those that we are required by either ordinance or statute to notify. As in the example of road commissioners, if a new entrance permit is required or being asked for, they get notified. That's there's a referral form that they have to bring back to us that the road commissioner has to sign off on. If they are modifying a driveway, the modification would be within the right of way. They have to notify the road commissioner.
Is that part of the automation where that would go out electronically and
Yes.
come back?
Yeah.
Okay.
Currently, we hand them a piece of paper and say, take this to the road commissioner and fill it out. This could be done electronically. So if the driveway modification is on their private property, the road commissioner does not get notified because it doesn't affect him. It's on their private property. So that's when they get notified. What Mr. Smith is talking about is notification above and beyond that. And who wants to be notified and how often? Do you do every permit or only certain types of permits? I mean, we 800 permits last year across 17 townships. That's 17 people to notify 800 times. Right now, manually, that would be a burden to the staff. It's not as simple as a 20-second email. You've got to take the application, scan the application, take it back to get back to your desk, create it. So I'll just stop there.
Okay, Mr. Washington, did you want to?
Personally, I'm in favor of this upgrade because a number of reasons. We have downsized in the number of employees in planning and zoning, and as things grow and increase, the demand for more personnel is going to be there. This will help to hold that in check by having this automated system rather than having an individual or individuals to do the work.
That's right. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, Mr. Wheeler?
Sorry, last question. What was the other fee on the building permit fee you were going to talk about? You mentioned it, I only wrote down the
It could be, you
contract
could
number.
raise building permit fees for all building permits. That's a possibility too. Those were last updated, I think, around 2007, 2008, somewhere in that range. About 2000, Michelle, you might be able to help me, 2012, rather than raise the fee, we added a $25 administration fee, which was based on the bellwether study. At that time, that study showed that we should raise our fees to cover our costs, and rather than change the table, we just added a $25 administration fee to each permit. So you could do something similar to that again.
Okay, anyone else? I have a couple quick questions, Del. Del and I have talked about this before. How does this work into the one we were talking about for the planning department also? Could that be tied with this, or is this the same type of thing?
I guess I'm not sure on your question.
Oh,
Oh, I guess I'm not sure on your question. I mean, it is the planning department. We are the planning department,
okay.
so.
So this is one we talked about before.
You could expand the system out to also cover other things, zoning cases. You could put those applications on there as well and be part of the process, or any of our other numerous applications, such as for subdivisions or farmstead exemptions. You could also expand it out to other parts of the county. It does allow you to do licensing, so liquor licenses or any other licenses that the county might use. It doesn't have to necessarily be our office that could use it. I don't know what that may or may not change on the cost, but you certainly could do some of that.
In the assessor's office, would that help them also?
I have no idea. I doubt it.
Doubt it, okay.
Other than they would be able to, well, the township assessors and the assessor's office could look up building permit information without having to come to our office and pick it up monthly as they do now.
Okay.
So.
Anyone else? Any more questions? Anyone in the back have anything you want to say? Mr. Marion, you good? Okay. Okay, next up, we're gonna move on to zoning.
I just want
We need a motion.
Oh, we need a motion
Are we-
to pass it on or research
like to
it,
know
or
where
how
we're
we gonna
going
do?
from here, yeah.
We discussed it here. We think he needs to do it. If everyone needs to do it, we should have a vote of some kind, I believe. Mr. Wheeler, you good with me on that?
I had someone else should make the motion.
Yeah, Mr. Smith makes that motion. Mr. Kinzinger seconds the motion. We have a roll call vote? No? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
And the motion was to,
Look into this and dig it for finance, right?
so I take it to finance then, or?
Could we clarify that finance needs to have the details that we talked about? The contract,
Yeah, I'll have to
all the
look.
other stuff that we're talking of that
Prior,
finance is gonna
right.
need.
Prior to the meeting?
Right.
Prior to the meeting, okay.
Well,
You get
it'll
that
be in the
together, Del?
packet.
I could probably have the company do a demonstration, hands-on demonstration too.
Would
That
that
would be
work, or do we need it all on paper in advance?
That's next week, so
Yeah, probably not by that one.
Okay.
We're probably looking at March or,
we're looking at March's meeting.
yeah,
Okay, yeah, if you wanna
Likely.
bring the Roving Pony, that's.
okay.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Is that something we can get here also, Del? The information on that? So
Well,
we're
except for the
notified?
Demonstration, I mean, I guess I could do have them do the demonstration here too, I
Okay.
suppose.
No,
No,
we're
just what
good.
we were talking, we saw the demo. I think he's talking about the numbers.
Sure, I can
Yeah.
bring those back too as well.
Okay. Okay,
What's next up? Oh,
next up we have zoning again, zoning activity for 219 in the new zoning map.
yeah, every year in March, the county board readopts their zoning map that reflects all of the changes that occurred throughout
Uh-oh.
the previous year. So for 2019, we had 15 zoning cases, which is 4 rezonings, one from A1 to A2, one from R1 C2 to A1, and 2 A1 to rural estate RE. We had 3 special use permits, one for a slaughterhouse, one for a kennel, and one for a residence on greater than 2 acres. We had 4 variances, one of those was denied. And we had 4 text amendments, one for agritourism, one for home occupations, one for cannabis dispensaries, and one that updated the wind farm ordinance. We also had 13 farmstead exemptions that were issued last year. Our original map was first created and adopted in March 21st, 1967. Revised in 71, and the last major update to the zoning ordinance and map was 1996. Since then, we've been updating the map itself every year and occasionally updating the zoning ordinance through text amendments on an as-needed basis. Since we have the power of the GIS and digital technology now, we actually deliver the map on the GIS, and we have very little requests for paper hard copy maps these days, but we do print a few just in case. So that is the 2020 map on the screen there. If anybody would like a copy of it, we could certainly get it for you. It'll be on the GIS once it's adopted by the full county board in March. So this would require a motion to approve the new 2020 zoning map.
Okay. Anyone have any questions? Ms. Peters? Oh, motion, Ms. Peters, second by Mr. Swanson. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Oh, denied. Anyone against?
Just a quick question.
Sure.
At times we've run into the extra jurisdictional area, the 1.5 miles from municipalities. When we originally, or when this was done in 67, there was a lot of land that was thought to be, it was gonna be residential, but it never happened. Is that part of the revisions that you guys do on a yearly basis as you look at those areas and kind of, you know, suggest rezonings and things like that? You see?
No. Yeah, but
okay.
no.
That's a lot of work, and I was just wondering
No,
if that's something.
that is a lot of work, and requires, in order to change the zoning map, you have to go through the same zoning process. So
For
every
each
one of those
parcel.
parcels
Yeah.
would be a zoning case. Now, you can lump them together. They tried that in 1996 to reduce some of that. Because of the pushback on it, they dropped that idea. Our comprehensive plan still says that those areas should be reduced. And it's a little bit well, what happened there was a bit of a change in planning philosophy. Back in 67, you drew up your plan of where you thought you would grow to, and then so that to allow for that growth, you would change your zoning ordinance accordingly, and they should match. Somewhere in about the late 1980s, 1990s, it was determined that's a real bad idea, because if they have zoning, then it is by right they can do that there. It is better to not change your zoning map, regardless of what your plan says, and still make the property owner come in and ask so that you can get to review their project and make sure that everything fits accordingly. So since then, that is the way we've been operating, just like many other places. However, we are still stuck with these legacy areas that are zoned, especially residential, that should not be and probably never should have been.
Thank you. That's all I had.
Okay, Mr. Smith.
Mr. Wheeler triggered a question for me, Dale. On the village's area of control, that 1.5 mile radius, where does that start from? Is it the center of the village, the exterior boundaries?
Exterior boundary.
Okay.
So as their corporate limit line expands, if they annex a piece of property, their 1.5 miles extends out farther.
All right, thank you.
And how they can control that depends on what you're talking about, but there are various, in the realm of a rezoning, if an objection within that 1.5 miles can trigger a 3/4 majority vote by the county board to approve anything. I think that also carries through with special use permits. They do have some pre-annexation authority within that 1.5 miles, and the village of Pembroke, or Village of Hopkins Park in Pembroke, just recently used that, whereas if they have a pre-annexation agreement with a piece of property, they can enforce all of their ordinances and laws on that piece of property as if it was in the village. So therefore, we lose our zoning authority over that piece of property within the 1.5 miles. If they chose to do that. It's been done twice already. Well, this would be the third time in the county. Bradley did it once, and the Village of Grant Park also did it once. And those are reflected on the map, that little black square down there in the bottom. It's called Public Act, I think, 195. Any of them that are marked black, if you actually zoom into the map, because there's a lot of black up there right now for the parcels, you would actually be able to see them. And in those cases, we refer them to the home property owner to the village as if it was in the village.
Okay.
Okay. Entertain a motion to pass this on the county board. Oops.
You already did the motion, didn't you? Yes, Ms. Peters.
Peters and Swanson, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Yep, all against, say opposed, same sign. Thank you. That's it. Okay, we're gonna go for the electronic recycling, Delbert.
Yes.
Mr. Skimmerhorn, what do we have here?
Well, back around November, Mr. Wheeler asked me to look into grants for electronic recycling for the county, because currently CARMA operates 2 electronic recycling facilities within the county, one at the Public Works yard at the City of Kankakee and one at the Public Works in Bradley. And they started those because they were receiving grant money from the IEPA to operate those facilities. That money they had lost those grants, and Mr. Wheeler wanted to know why and of what was available out there. Well, the reason they lost the grants is because they no longer exist. They've been replaced with the Consumer Electronics Recycling Act, which is known as CERA, the CERA Act, which went into effect in 2017. It is scheduled to be repealed in 2026. I'm not sure where that's going to go with the legislation. It seems to be a fairly successful program, so I imagine the legislature will continue it. And that act requires manufacturers and sellers of electronic devices to pay for their recycling. They have to pay into a fund to pay for their recycling. Another part of the act that I found was interesting, that it is a $7,000 fine to knowingly put electronics into your trash or dump them on the side of the road, not dispose of them properly.
That'd be useful.
So we looked into it. How does this affect us? Because Karma no longer wants to, they've been paying the full freight for the electronic recycling, and they no longer want to be in the electronic recycling business. So we looked into how the CERA program could work for us. The program, you have to opt in March 1st of each year. And once you opt in on March 1st, then the IEPA will assign you a recycler, and then you work with that recycler to set up your program. Basically, though, if you look at you also have this in your packet, the county and local jurisdictions would be responsible for everything in blue on the left. The manufacturer recyclers will pay for everything and responsible for everything in green on the right. The only thing on the left the recyclers will also pay for is they will supply all packaging materials and supplies for packaging the electronics. So the county or the local municipalities are responsible for the cost of collecting the electronics, storing them until they're picked up, packaging them in a manner specified by the recycler for pickup, and actually loading the trucks. The manufacturers / recyclers are responsible for picking up the electronics, transporting them to the recycling location, and actually recycling them. So, so once we've opted in March 1st, we're assigned a recycler. We work with them to set up the program of how often we're going to be picked up, where our location's actually going to be, all of that stuff. The actual program would start January 1st. So if we do not opt in this March 1st, we will have to wait till next March 1st to opt in, which makes it 2022 before the program would start. And since you cannot toss them in your trash, and presumably not on the roadside, the citizens of this county, if Karma decides not to do it, would have no place to take their electronics for recycling.
Mr. CERA.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Skimmer, can these locations be rotated, the collection sites? Can they rotate? Or are they fixed locations?
Don't believe so. We have to notify them of what site we want. The program, we are eligible for one site, for sure.
But that can't be rotated?
They did say we could ask for multiple sites. We might get a second one if there's money available.
Gotcha.
Okay. Mr. Wheeler.
Thanks. Just to let people know, I've met with all the mayors on this a couple of times, and there's been township officials there as well. And Dell, I asked him to come in, and he's been there on 2 occasions explaining this. So there is the knowledge that, you know, the county right now doesn't pay anything for this service that goes on in Kankakee and Bradley. Karma's footing the bill, and their municipal employees are the ones that are doing the work. You know, the one in Bradley has 3 sides in it, so people just come in and dump stuff all over the place, and we don't know whether they're from Cal City or if they're from Clifton. You know, so it's one of those things where it's really unmanaged right now, and we don't know. They could be coming from Manteno, or they could be coming from the rural area. So we don't know who's putting electronics in these places, so it's hard to peg down, you know, how much each municipality and the county and everybody, if we were to get together, how much should everybody pay? The other thing is they're not manned. There's nobody working at these sites. So, you know, it's just all hours of the day, all hours of the night. You know, if I don't think Kankakee has a fence around it, does
Yes.
it? That one does.
Both sites had a fence around them and a little like lean-to to put the electronics under. for whatever reason, and I still have not heard why, Bradley has lost its lean-to, so it's only got the fence on 3
Okay.
sides.
But it is open during the day and all of that kind of stuff.
3 days a week.
3 days a week. And so there's options on where the site would be. There's options on, we just kicking around different ideas with the mayors. It seems like they all want to do something, but they all don't really know.
I've heard from 2 that definitely said that they would like to participate, Village of Herscher and Village of Mantino. Okay, they're very interested, so.
Well, and obviously Kankakee and Bradley want to participate because they're part of Karma and they don't,
Yeah,
but
the
they
city of
haven't-
Kankakee seems to want to participate.
City and Bradley hasn't responded at all,
No,
so they don't care.
have not talked, I have not talked to them, so.
Of course.
Which, we would start meetings after March 1st to really get people involved.
So the other thing was the opt-in. As I remember, we could opt in, but we have until a certain time this year to actually establish the program. So if we opt in, we could say, it's not coming together this year. We're gonna have to wait till next year to opt in. Is that
Yes,
correct?
we have
Okay.
till somewhere near January to opt out. I think I could get you a better date on that. I'm sure you can't wait till December 31st to opt out. But yes, you can opt out. If we can't negotiate intergovernmental agreement with the municipalities or get the system to our liking, we can opt out.
Okay, and so that was my comment to the mayors in our last meeting is maybe we should opt in, obviously bring it to the committee for their decision, but maybe the smart move is to opt in, figure out what the lay of the land is over the next few months and see if we can get this together. And if we can't, then we opt out.
Right.
But we miss a whole year if we don't do something soon.
Right.
As the county, we can just opt in just to get, because we'd be the lead agency.
Right, and the county can opt in. In fact, if we're even considering this, we should opt in because we've only got a few weeks before we get there. You can always opt out the week after if you want to, but we should opt in. The second page in your packet kind of explains what Karma's currently been doing and what I think the new system would look like. Right now, they're bringing in about 329,000 pounds of electronics a year at a total cost of $153,000. 86 for the pickup cost, the manpower to operate the site, load the trucks, etc., $67,000. Under the CERA program, that column for yearly cost of pickup would be eliminated, and assuming you kept your hours of operation the same, days of operation, and we had similar amounts of tonnage being picked up, the program would cost around $70,000 a year, and that comes out to about, if every person in Kankakee County paid their fair share, about 61 cents a person per year.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
And that just reminded me of something, and I mentioned this to the mayors too, and we don't know how this committee feels about it, but why not have it open all day on Saturday? And that's your collection day, because you want somebody there to know where the stuff is coming from. So you have to pay for somebody if you want to actually document that we don't have people from Indiana coming over here and just dumping their electronics here. Or worse yet, in the ditches. It's going to be free to the people because, again, you don't want to have stuff going in the ditches. But we want them to do the right thing. But it seems Saturday might be a day to do this. Every other Saturday or something. I don't know. But we can talk about that.
Right, that all needs to be negotiated. Obviously, the more days you're open, the more cost you're going to have, especially if it's a manned site. If it's not a manned site, then you really can't control who's dropping off. And I looked at various other counties. There's 68 counties that are already in the CERA program from last year, and they're all over the place. Some of them are open 1 day a week, some of them are open 7 days a week, some of them have big recycling centers that takes all kinds of recycling, not just electronics. Others are actually, there's a few that are only open a couple times a month. Just depends on how you want to fit the program to meet our own needs. Some of them do charge for televisions and computer monitors, up to somewhere between a $15 and $35 charge, depending on the county. But apparently, those have a negative recycling value. Yes.
Okay, Mr. Washington.
Could be. So,
Will there be a process of identification when they bring these items in? The people that bring them?
undetermined at this point. As I said, we'd have to pick up that or put together that part of the program. I don't know how many days a week the municipalities in the county would like to have it open. If they want to put restrictions that you must be a resident, you know, that all affects the cost. Because if you're going to have IDs, you obviously have to have somebody there standing at the gate checking those IDs. Is that worth it? That's not my decision to make. So that would be, I envision that we opt in on March 1st. We get in contact with the IEPA about who our recycler is going to be, bring them to the table and a representative from the county and each municipality, and start working out the details.
Okay. Mr. Smith is next. Mr. Smith?
Sir, did I hear you say that there is basically a surcharge on the sale of a TV, for example? To help cover this?
That's my understanding.
Okay, so there really shouldn't be an additional cost to the taxpayer.
I don't have a strong feeling either way. I'm just relaying to you what others do. Some do, some don't.
Yeah. Otherwise, you could go to Indiana, buy a TV, and not pay it, and then come back. So.
Go with gasoline.
Yeah, same thing. Okay. Anyone else have any questions? So let's have a roll call vote on this to recommend it to the county board meeting next meeting. Or would that be finance again?
The opt-in form would be before then.
Okay. Well, we have to recommend that we discussed it and that we agree on it. That needs to go forward. March 1st is too late. Okay. Yes, Mr. Wheeler.
I think this committee has the authority at least to opt in because we're not committing any finances and we're still in the fact-finding phase. So I would say that you have the authority to do that unless somebody disagrees.
Well, I think I was just going to ask for
we're not pulling the
that.
trigger on anything else, so the motion would be to opt in and then work on the details with the other municipalities, then bring that back for the county to act on in a finance / full board manner.
That's where I was heading with this one. Okay.
There's no harm to opt in.
Mr. Payton, you had one?
So move.
So move, Mr. Payton. Mr. Fairfield, second. Can we get a roll call vote, please? No money?
Voice.
Not at this
Voiced? Okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. None? Okay. Motion carries, Howard. Get going.
Okay, well, I've got the Kankakee County Courthouse Square landscape plan, but Michelle is going to take care of that.
Okay, Michelle? Okay, Michelle.
Figured you guys would be tired
Sadler.
of hearing me by now.
Figure right. Sorry, my mic was on.
Whoops.
Okay, good morning.
Good morning.
If you recall, back in March of 2019, I brought to you the Courthouse Square landscaping plan to go forward for a CLG grant. At that time, you approved it to move forward. We were not quite prepared to move forward at that time. So now we are coming back because now we're better prepared. We're ready to apply for the 2020 CLG grant, which should happen in the next couple months when we get the application. We did send out RFQs at that time in 2019. We had 4 architectural firms apply. We interviewed, and the Historic Preservation discussed it at length and recommends Site Design Group. We felt they were the best qualified, had the best, they were working with us because with the CLG grant, we have to work on the cost now to apply for the grant, and they're willing to work with us to do this in phases because we're never going to be able to get it done through the whole thing on one shot, most likely, because there's no guarantee what the state will, it's federal grant money that runs through the state, and there's no guarantee on how much they will approve us for. So we're looking for we're recommending the Site Design Group. Just looking for your approval to go ahead and accept them so that we can move forward with negotiating on the price and applying for the CLG grant for 2020.
Okay. Mr. Kinzinger.
Yeah, the Site Design Group, is that a local firm? And
They're out of Chicago.
Did any local firms apply?
We had one, yes.
Motion to accept.
Okay, Mr. Washington makes a motion to accept. Get a second. Mrs. Payton in the back. Or I mean, Ms. Polk, I'm sorry. I'll get Mr. Washington, or I mean, Mr. Wheeler.
It's okay. Mr. Fairfield. Gotcha. The question I had was about the grant. Is it an 80-20 matching grant?
70/30,
70-30.
and it would be our part would be in-kind service to help them with any kind of research.
That's good.
Having the historic preservation conduct any meetings.
So when it does come back and they do have a price, this committee just should know that ours is in kind. It's not
Right.
cash out of pocket.
Right.
So,
Okay.
okay.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign, none. Okay,
Thank you.
motion carries.
Thank you
Thank you, Michelle. Okay, next up, we have a rural transit update. Jeffrey Olson's gonna do that one. Okay,
Old Jeff.
morning, Jeff.
Morning. Just had a couple updates to give everyone today. So our second quarter for the rural transit fiscal year ended December 31st. And so the second quarter, October 1st through December 31st, we had 10,435 trips. So this quarter was a little bit below the same time last year, but in comparing the first half of this fiscal year and the first half of last fiscal year, it was about even. The program expenses for second quarter were $180,588.87, and that was about on par with what last quarter was. Some other things with transit. IDOT is working on unrolling a new application process for the upcoming fiscal year. So as we get started on applications, they've got some trainings for us and webinars that are scheduled for that. In January, like every year, we send out letters of interest to transportation providers around the area who's interested in providing transit service. Showbus was the only one that responded. That's been typical for quite some time. They've been providing rural transit service in the county since 1999. The last item I had was that IDOT recently released a new capital manual, and so we're working with Showbus. We're reviewing the requirements of that for our bus shelter grant. So hopefully coming up shortly, we'll be able to do our RFP for the bus shelters.
Yes, Mr. Kinzinger.
A quick question. You mentioned 10,000 trips. What's ridership average on a 10,000 trip?
Well, I guess it's the same, but if you were to usually what I like to do is divide it in half. If it was someone going from their house to, whether it be a doctor's office, grocery shopping, and back, that would be 2 trips. So maybe 5,000 individuals-ish. But again, you can also get into the complexities of trip chaining. So if someone goes from their house to a doctor's office, to a grocery store, to another grocery store, back home, that would be 4 or 5 trips. I can say I do have that on the demand response service. We did have 4,055 trips. So that's our dial-a-ride service that most individuals use for things like doctor's appointments. And then we did have 6,380 trips on the Moments commuter route. So those are more work-based trips.
Okay. Any questions on the update? Okay, barring none, that's it for you, Jeffrey.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Olson, I mean. Okay, anything under old business here today? Anything under new business? 3 openings on the Kankakee County Regional Planning Commission. Does that have to be a board member or anybody, Talbert? Mr. Skimmerhorn?
Not be a county board member.
Okay. Those are being advertised for? No? Okay. Okay, motion to adjourn. Okay, Ms. Peters, all in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Have a good day. Thanks for coming.